And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. We are back to recap episode 6 of Survivor 45. Me and Ryan here, and we have so much to talk about. And I know Ryan was just saying right before we hopped on, he's like, I'm disappointed that we couldn't go live right after the episode. This was one for the ages, and this would have been an unreal podcast going right after the episode, but it'll still be an unreal podcast because we're here right now and there's so much to talk about. What's up, Brian?
Dylan, I am so excited to talk about this with you. I looked this up actually almost 8 years ago. So November 11th, 2015 is when we heard, Wentworth does not count like 9 times in a row. And I thought, that's the record. We're never going to see that happen again. 9 votes, let alone 10 or 11. And sure enough, 8 years later, what happens? Caleb breaks the record. So can't wait to talk about this amazing episode with you.
Yeah, and ironically, you bring up Wentworth, right? Survivor on Twitter, if you look at their Twitter this week, they tweeted, I believe it was like Wednesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, they tweeted a clip of Wentworth finding an idol under the shelter, which I thought was insanely random, right? And I was like, why would they be doing this? And then they showed that, obviously a few minutes into the episode, Bruce is looking for the idol under the shelter. So I'm like, oh, that's why they tweeted that clip out. Little did I know that it would have a double meaning in the episode. Crazy.
Yeah, they had us in the first half, not gonna lie. No, they've been doing a great job at like teasing up things without like revealing what's gonna happen. It's been fun.
Yeah. Absolutely wild. Let's get right to the vote, right? So earn the merge situation, right? Where break into groups of 6 and then one person sitting out. That person has to pick which tribe they think is going to win. Katurah sits out. She picks the right tribe who wins the challenge, so she's safe. So we have 6 people at risk to go home and 13 people with votes, at least we thought. And what happens here is we get one of the craziest things that we've ever seen at a Survivor Tribal Council. So Caleb plays his shot in the dark. It works. And every single vote at Tribal Council that was cast goes for Caleb. And so he voided what, 12?
11.
Okay, right. So because Austin did not vote.
Yeah.
So Austin didn't vote, and then you don't vote with Shot in the Dark. So 11-0 vote for Caleb, and all 11 votes are nulled because the Shot in the Dark is safe. Caleb is safe, and then Jay ends up being the vote out from the result of this. So what were your immediate thoughts, Ryan, on the whole vote? Obviously, historic vote, crazy vote, and Caleb lives to see another day.
No, this was wild. Again, like you said, I mean, Twitter was going crazy after the episode. I was watching some of the reactions to the RHAP live thing. Everybody was losing their minds over probably a historic tribal council. I feel like it's going to be easy for us to say, well, recency bias. You can't say this is one of the best tribal councils because it just happened, and you can't compare the old era to the new era. But I can't remember the last time I jumped off like this at a tribal council in a long time, honestly. Maybe the last time I can think of, Marianne blindsiding Omer was great, but the last time I jumped off my couch was like when Denise plays the 2 idols on her and Jeremy, and then she takes out Sandra. Like, that was wild. But I haven't felt that reaction in a long time.
Or the Tony 4-3-2 vote or whatever.
Or 4-3-2. Yeah,
those two were probably since those 2 moments. Those 2, I was losing my mind. I have not had anything since then like that.
But again, both are 5 seasons ago, so still been a while since we've been hyped, and the season's trajectory keeps going up and up and up. No, I thought it was interesting, Dylan, how everybody votes for Caleb. The 2 things I want to ask you about and kind of break down on this vote, and then we can kind of get into was this the right vote for people, was, Emily obviously votes for Caleb. She doesn't throw him a sympathy vote. She doesn't try to protect him. She gives him the information that, hey, they're coming for you. If you have, well, Caleb probably told her, everybody knows Bruce has the idol at this point from Lulu. So she's probably saying, if you have your shot in the dark, you got to play it. But she still votes with everybody else. So what I want to ask you, Dylan, is, at the time I was like, oh, she's just kind of showing her loyalty. But do you feel like if Emily voted somebody else to kind of save Caleb here, and then there was the revote, potentially, Well, no, technically there would not have been a revote because then that person could have gone home. But the point is, like, do you think that if Emily had thrown a vote onto somebody else, her target could have risen up? So she really did a smart move, just kind of going with the group and voting out Caleb here.
Yeah, I think underratedly one of the most smart moves of the episode, right? So she knew that, Caleb was basically in danger no matter what. There was nothing she could do to change that, right? So she goes with the flow in order to keep options open, in order to make it seem like she's still working with some of the other people and she's not so tied down to working with Caleb. And it works perfectly, right? So had she thrown a random vote on somebody else, on let's say Jay or anybody else, and that person goes home with one vote, then all of a sudden Emily probably becomes the biggest target in the game. I would say even more than Caleb, right? Because now it's like you have all these people on red who think that Emily's working with them and are like, well, she's not working with us anymore. She just completely switched up on the vote. And she's loyal to Caleb instead and not us. So I think this was a genius move by Emily. Nobody is going to suspect anything. Caleb will not care because he completely will understand it. And I think that Emily remains in a great spot in this game. So underrated, great move. Now I want to talk about in terms of let's talk about, like, was it the right move to be targeting Caleb in the first place? That's the first thing let's talk about. And then the second thing we could talk about is, was it the right move to vote out Jay on the revote?
Sure.
So I think ultimately, like, as much as I didn't want it to happen, voting out Caleb would have been probably a wise move, right? You get him out before he hits the merge. You know, he's one of the most social players in the game. He is a swing vote, right? So, and he's kind of playing both sides, right? Everybody sees it. Like, Bruce says it to us. We've heard other people say it. We've heard Red say that he's this like salesman when he came over for that reward. So I think theoretically it was the right move to vote Caleb. The issue is, how is there no backup plan? How did every single vote go on Caleb? I think one of the things that I think is interesting here with this is, I think, it's like, all right, you could say, from sitting on the couch, you could say, all right, it's insane to put all your votes on one person. And you saw even Wentworth tweeted it. She said it makes for great TV, but how in 2023 are people throwing all their votes on one person? I think that when there's so many people merged on a beach and it just happens like that, 13 people on a beach merged, it's hard for everybody to get on the same page, I think. So it would almost be hard to, and again, ironically, I'm saying that as everybody was on the same page as voting Caleb, but it's hard to get on the same page in terms of like a secondary plan and like figuring out who's going to vote for Caleb and who's going to vote for someone else. So I think that a lot of people, they'll just like, they don't want to like be the one to come up with that backup plan. One, because if it gets back to somebody else, it could rebound on them. Two, like, again, everyone wants to have that easy vote, right, to start off the merge. So I think that there's like a lot of like psychological things that go along with coming up with a secondary target and throwing stray votes on somebody else. I think like if you at the end of the day, it's like, all right, 1 in 6 chance of a shot in the dark being safe. We've only seen it happen one time, and it was in season 44, and it was completely meaningless. Like if Caleb gets safe on shot in the dark, then like, so be it. Almost like, I think a lot of people do have that thought process because there's so many things that can go wrong with coming up with a secondary target or figuring out who is going to throw that extra vote on somebody else. So I think that's why all the votes end up going on Caleb. That being said, there's a big conversation to why did somebody like Jay not throw a stray vote at somebody else? Because that would have been the wise move for her, because she really had nothing to lose, right? She knew as soon as Caleb got safe and shot in the dark that she was done, right? So she knew that she was the secondary target. So, if Caleb did have an idol or Caleb did play the shot in the dark, then I don't know why Jay did not just throw a stray vote at somebody else to make sure that she was not the one going home. So that's the one person I think that could be criticized for not throwing a vote somewhere else. The other is like, I think it is somewhat understandable of like the thought process of why there was no secondary target here. But I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah. Was Caleb the right target? And your thoughts on throwing every single vote on him.
No, you make a lot of good points, Dylan. I think Caleb makes sense as a target because, like you say, when you hit the merge officially, I mean, this whole earn the merge is stupid regardless, but when you hit the actual merge, someone like Caleb, who is very social, who can play the middle with Emily, who is liked by both groups, is going to be very dangerous the more you give him leeway in the game. So it makes sense to target him here before he really gets his feet under him. And the irony is not lost upon me, Dylan, that Bruce is the one with Kendra who's pushing Caleb because, Caleb's he sees Caleb going around, making connections, playing both sides. It's not lost upon me because he knows how 44 ended. He knows how the Tika 3 slid to the end. And Bruce kind of wisely is like, I just saw what happened last season, or I heard what happened. If we let Emily and Caleb slide, like Tika, Matt Singh, they're just going to go all the way to the end and we're going to pick off each other. Let's get the swing votes out now. So it was good on Bruce to kind of push that narrative. Obviously, he couldn't have foreseen the shot in the dark 1 in 6 chance working. But I think, was it the right move to, like you said, to put all the votes on Caleb and not split? I mean, look, I think it's always good to throw votes around just in case this can happen. We saw this with Wentworth and now with Caleb, and we've seen it plenty of other times. I think you brought up a great point that when you have the red and the blue, Belo and Reba, and they are kind of in like a Cold War and they kind of are going to start firing at each other, you start throwing other names out there, it could end up falling back on you. So just going with the consensus and Caleb kind of makes sense. And like you also said, it's going to be hard for them to get on the same page for either a primary name, and if not, then definitely a secondary name will be very hard to get on the same page for, especially when we had a tribe swap, but it wasn't like all the numbers got mixed up. The tribe swap, other than the new Bella, which was 221, the other 2 tribes, Dylan, was 4 from the red and then 4 from the blue, and then, one other person like Emily or like Caleb and Sean. But like, the swap wasn't really like a full-on swap in a way. So you still have red and blue mostly sticking together. So like you mentioned, it's going to be very hard for them to get on page for a secondary name. And then your final question to me about Jay. So I agree. I feel like Jay obviously should have thrown a name out there to kind of try to save herself in case this happened. And I think I read her exit press. She also admitted, like, I probably could have done that to, stay safe there, because once she tried to throw around Emily, it was not going to happen. The only thing I can think of, and what she tries to explain, Dylan, is like, everybody knows that Bruce has the yellow idol. So she's like not concerned Caleb's going to pull out the idol because she knows Bruce has it. So if she knows all the votes are going on Caleb, the only way Caleb stays safe is he hits a 1 in 6 chance, which is very unlikely. So she got a little unlucky there. Probably still could have thrown a vote out. But I guess in her mind as well, it's like, if I vote Emily on the revote, Caleb's going to be pissed and people will come after me. Or if I swing red or blue, I'm already on the bottom. I'm now an easy vote for next time as well. So let me just go with the numbers, vote Caleb. Yes, you should throw the vote anyway, because that's what happened. But I don't think anyone could have foreseen a 1 in 6 chance happening. But
yeah, and then I think that's a good point, right? Is if she throws the one vote that gets somebody else out, she saves herself for 1 week, and then she's probably a sitting duck at the next tribal council anyway, right?
Yeah.
So that is an interesting point, even though she should have still thrown that stray vote. Now I want to ask you the second question: was Jay the right move after, like, for the second vote? Was that the right move? And I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think personally it didn't make much sense, in my opinion, to vote Jay out. And I'm kind of shocked how easily red goes along with this, right? And again, you said it's like a Cold War, right? It's like you have Reba and Belo, and they're kind of just waiting to fire their shots, and they're going to get Caleb at this time, or so they think. That being said, like, D and Drew, like, they wanted to get out Jay, right? They were willing to take a shot at one of their own before, this whole, or I guess to start the war before this whole war actually started, which is so interesting to me, right? And, there's plenty of arguments out there, like, yeah, maybe they thought that Jay would flip and that Jay was not loyal and that Jay was not with them. But from everything that we saw, it feels like she probably would have stuck with the girls for at least a few votes. So I think that while they may have had the right idea that she was not a long-term piece, I think that you still have to, like, use that to your advantage in the short term, at least to get through these next few votes. So I was kind of shocked at how many people were just so willing to vote her. And obviously Austin has an incentive to vote her out because the amulet, right? So now his, what is it? The extra vote turns into a steal a vote. Is that correct now? Right. So yeah. Clearly there was incentive there from Austin, but like for everybody else, I think you kind of, Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I thought that them targeting Jay in the first place before Caleb even was voted out was pretty crazy, right? I think that in this situation you have to do everything you could to make sure Bello gets eliminated here. Like if you're Reba, right? If it's not
Yeah.
Caleb. So yeah, I'm curious to know your thoughts on like what do you think about Jay being voted out? Is there anything they could have done in terms of the revote to make sure that it was, or at least try voting out of Bello? Or do you think it was just fine to just let Jay go?
So yeah, I was listening to a couple of podcasts, and I think Adam was talking about how once you get to that revote, if other names haven't been mentioned on the beach already, it's going to be very hard to just throw out a brand new name at the revote and get people to go on them. Because then it's like you're asking people to make that calculation or that decision for their game like in a split second at that wild tribal. So the only names brought up at the beach, it sounds like, was Caleb, Jay, and Bruce, but Bruce had an idol. Maybe people were scared to vote Bruce because of his idol in the moment. So when you start throwing around Emily, or someone says, let's vote for Julie, let's vote for Kendra, it's like if that name hasn't been brought up, Adam was saying, it's gonna be very hard to get a lot of traction for that and get people on board. So I'm not surprised that when the revote happened, it was like, all right, it's gonna be Jay, and then Jay tries to throw out Emily, but that just was not going to happen. When you say like, was it the right move for people? Clearly it's the right move for the old Bellows because they get to take a shot at Reba. And I looked this up. Even though Caleb was going to be the vote tonight, ironically, in the new era, our 5 seasons, the person who's gone home at Mergatory is the person from the biggest tribe. Like Sydney, Josh last season, Reba had the most people this season, so Jay goes home. Ironically, or maybe not ironically, the person who's in the majority heading into the merge loses a number. And I think that's because they are seen as, a big unit, so you have to take someone out. And then you might say, well, then why does Reba want to devour one of their own? It's kind of like we saw this with Tandang. When a tribe doesn't go to tribal a lot, they want to cut off, not cut off some of the fat, but they want to cut off, an extra piece because they're itching to vote people out. I agree with you. I don't know why the old Red Tribe is so eager to vote Jay out. The only thing I can think of is maybe like Sifu at some point rats her out early in the game, but like she clearly is going to stick with them, but they want to vote her out. Sifu wants to get rid of her as well because he thinks she voted for him and he didn't. It was D. And then Austin's mad about the sandwich. So they all wanted to get rid of Jay for some reason. And I really feel like they could have taken out a Bello member here. I agree with you. You, me, and your brother were texting about this, and we were like, the target should have been on Kelly or Jake. Kelly or Jake should have been in danger here as blue members, especially Kelly with an amulet. Jay and Austin should have got Austin. Jay and it's Austin, right?
Yeah.
I had a brain fart. I'm like, no, it's another A name, like Andre. No, it's Austin. Sorry. I'm like, Jay and Austin should have gotten on the same page and been like, we're both former Reba. Let's get out Kelly, because then we have now 2 amulets for a vote steal. It should have been Kelly or Jake. So good on Kelly and Jake. And we know how connected Kelly is. But like they should have been the targets here. So happy for them that they managed to get the vote onto Caleb and then onto Jay. But I think that's what should have happening. I don't know why Reba was so eager to take out Jay. But
yeah, and I'm wondering if like in terms of the amulet, you're right. Like Austin, like I said, it made sense for him to target Jay because the amulet powers up, but also like he could have just targeted Kelly on the other side, right?
It was a sandwich. He was mad about the sandwich.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of curious, like now that Jay's gone and Kelly's the only, and like now that Jay's gone and like Kelly's the only one that needs to be eliminated for Austin to power up. I'm curious to know if like, and also because he sacrificed his vote at this tribal, so his idol, he has a full idol now. Yeah. I'm curious, since he has that one idol, if he's a little bit like more lax to vote out Kelly and willing to wait. Since he already has an idol and like not rushing to do that. Just because I almost cannot see either of them getting voted out too soon. So I'm curious to see if that's maybe what happens, where they kind of just like are waiting to fire at each other. I
do have a quick question for you about this tribal council as well. So, do you think now heading into next week, I know we'll get maybe later into the whole preview with like, 2 people safe, 2 people going home. What I want to ask you, Dylan, because we keep mentioning Cambodia tonight or today, do you think heading into next week, Caleb bought himself some time, or do you think Caleb's going to be the easy vote once again next week? Because what we saw in Cambodia, and Steven mentioned this on Twitter, that after Kelly pulls off her move, yes, everybody wanted to talk to her. She was like a celebrity at camp. Everyone's like, that was a great move, Kelly. You're so awesome. But we see the next week, the majority tries targeting her again. But then, Spencer, Jeremy, and Fishback all flip to vote out Wigglesworth. Do you think Caleb will be the easy vote again? Or do you feel like he bought himself some time?
I want to say he bought himself a few more episodes, but I don't think much longer, right? It's like, it's one of those things that like, I feel like his target's so big at this point, clearly, that I don't think he's going to be able to rid it. And like his story to me is like his story after that. It was like what this whole like story arc that we've seen with Caleb and Emily. Like I felt like Emily will be going far into this game, but I almost feel like Caleb, like we've almost seen. I think that was like one of the conclusions to his arc. Like I think that may be the last big move he pulls, and I hope I'm wrong because I love watching him play. And I hope he goes further, but I think maybe next week, if I had to make a prediction, since it's two people safe in like groups of 6, I'm gonna predict that I think he like wins immunity next week, saves himself maybe one more week, and then he'll be at final 10, and then maybe gets past 1 or 2 more votes. I'm gonna guess that he's probably finishes 9th or 8th on this season, and is clearly a fan favorite and favored to come back in a future season. So that's what I think ultimately happens. But yeah, I think he's gonna be in danger again this week if he doesn't win immunity. And with the groups of 6, though, it depends how the groups are broken up, right? It's like if he ends up with Emily, that's automatically a huge help, okay? Because then they only need to bring in one more person to at least force a split on a vote, right? So I think that if he falls with the right people, then it could be good for him, and all of a sudden he's at final 10, and now he really has new life. But yeah, ultimately I think it's going to be hard for him to kind of shed that target past final 9, final 8.
I think a big thing for Caleb next week, looking ahead, yes, it'd be great if he's split up with Emily on the same group, but I think the biggest thing for him might be if he's with Bruce, because I'm trying to think about if you're Caleb and you get put into this twist where it's like 6 and 6, 2 people are going to go home. Who on Caleb's group will be like a bigger threat than him to take out? Because if he's with a random group of people, they all could just gang up again to vote him out. If he's with a couple of bellows like Kelly with Jake, I could see Kelly and Jake sticking with him. And if it's like Jake, Kelly, Caleb, and then you have maybe like Austin and Julie, I could see people taking a swing at Austin perhaps. I think the biggest thing, Dylan, will be, does he end up with Bruce? Because that's his best case scenario. If he ends up in a group of 6 with Bruce, I really feel like he's got to be like, guys, come on, Bruce has an idol. Let's take out Bruce. And that's really his biggest hope, I think, to make it through to that next week.
Yeah, I would say Bruce has to be a favorite to go home next week, even with the idol. He so has the personality of somebody that's going home with an idol in their pocket, and almost the edit to it also. It's like he's been like so like overconfident, and like the entire show he's been so like overconfident, feeling like he knows what he's doing because he was out there first, and like all this stuff. And we keep seeing Katurah and say that, and all these people say he bossed them around. For him to go out with an idol in his pocket would seem like a fitting conclusion to his arc as well. I think that he's a huge favorite to go out. And I think you make a great point. Like if you're Caleb, you want to be on the same 6 as Bruce, right? Because you want that opportunity to throw him out as a target. Now, one thing that I will say for Caleb that benefits him is there's a lot of big threats in this game right now. I feel like I think the way that the votes went, and we kind of saw this with 43 also, is like, and this is one of the reasons I really like 43 is like the boot order was very good. We lost a lot of the weaker players very early, and a lot of the stronger players really lasted until like final 8-ish. And then you kind of got like this explosion of like, a great move in the final 6 or whatever it was. But I feel like that could be somewhat the case here. I think there's a lot of big threats left in the game. You got Austin, you got Drew, you got D, you got Julie. Those are a power 4. You have Caleb's a huge threat. Emily is like a quiet threat, but we know she's a great player. Kelly is a big threat. So I think you got all these like great players, at least so we could see. And I think it's gonna make for great TV. But if you're one of those great players, right, you could want to keep Caleb in the game as a shield, right? You could say, all right, Caleb's always going to be a bigger target than me. Why not keep, it's only final 12 right now. Like, why not keep him until final 7 and hide behind that? So I think it will be interesting. Like I could see a Drew and an Austin, maybe revamping their strategy and saying, all right, we got this strong 4, but if we could work with Caleb and Emily a little bit, like that Caleb will always be the target over me if we're together. I'm curious because I do think that he could be used well as a shield, and then whenever he doesn't win immunity, they could just vote him off whenever, because I think that they know that he's the biggest threat. So it will be interesting to see which direction they take that.
You brought up a great point, Dylan, about the Reba 4, that alliance, because I think heading into next week, this is going to be a big test for them. If they can all make it through this split tribal next week, they go into Final 10 with 4 out of 10, which isn't a majority, doing Culpepper math. But all you then need is 2 more people on your side, or you just need to have some sort of a vote split, and you can do like a Tony 4-3-2. So yeah, I think if the alliance of 4 makes it through next week, they're sitting in a really good spot, because to my knowledge, they have not been detected yet. Jay was asked in her exit press, did you know about this alliance? And she said, everybody knew, at least from her perspective, everybody knows Austin and Drew are like this, and Dee and Julie are like this, but I don't think anybody has clocked yet that they are all kind of working together. So next week, when we have this split, are they all going to be in the same group? Are they all going to be split up? Is it going to be really dicey where maybe 3 of them end up on one side and Dee's all alone on the other side? Like, you really got to see how they shake up in this split tribal, because if they can make it through this vote, that's huge for them. They really got to keep staying undetected. I really feel like Julie and Dee should be fine, because they don't have any ammunition in terms of idols, and I feel like people would be much more likely to look at a Drew or an Austin, but you never know. It really depends on how it shakes up next week.
Yeah, there's so many different ways that this post merge could go, and I'm excited to see it unfold. Yeah, I don't know. I if I had to guess, I could see a scenario where Caleb and Emily kind of team up with Red, and then they have like the full majority. Like after next week, if all of them could get through, if the 4 and the 2 get through next week, then that would be 6 out of 10. I could kind of see that happening, where maybe they pick off a few more Bello. But and then my ultimate prediction for this season is that I think Emily is the one to break up the Drew Austin alliance, and she's going to be the one to vote one of them out. That's what I think. Like, I think she's heavily tied in with them right now, and I think that they trust her, and I could see her being the one to break that twosome up. Yeah, I think that's what I think happens. I think that they team up for a few episodes, and then they or at least Emily. Who knows if Caleb will still be there? Emily flips, but we'll see what happens. I'm so excited to watch this unfold.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, where it's like what we see in the show is because Emily worked with Drew and Austin on the Brando vote, you're going to be thinking she's going to work with Reba. Maybe Caleb will go with her and they start to pick off the Bellows. Maybe it's like once you take out Bruce, then you kind of get like a snowball effect. Maybe Kendra goes, maybe Kelly goes, Jake goes. But from the outside watching, I think you would agree, Dylan, it makes more sense for Emily and Caleb to work with Bello Blue and start picking off that Reba alliance, because the problem is what we see on the TV is Bello is so fractured. You know, Kelly is so annoyed at Bruce. Bruce doesn't like Caleb. Bruce and Katurah don't like each other. Jake's kind of going with, Kelly, and Jake's in a pretty good spot in the middle, but they are all very fractured. Whereas now that Jay is gone, Sifu's kind of on his own island. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Sifu, but like you have the alliance of 4. It would make a lot more sense for Caleb and or Emily to work with the Blue Tribe, but like they're not seeing what we're seeing. So you got to hope that they end up going with Blue, because if they start to pick off old Bello, you're just giving Reba even more power, because Austin has his amulets and he has an idol and Drew has safety without power. So they really have to start making some moves against that alliance. And I want to ask you, Dylan, really quickly. So again, people are sharing information. I need to know, like, who knows what. Like, I know all of the Red Tribe knows Austin has his amulets. They know he has an idol. They know Drew has safety without power. I don't know if anybody else in the game knows that. And then also, does anyone in the game know about Kelly's amulet? Like, I'm curious, like, who knows what at this point? I'm trying to keep track of, like, who knows what in the game beyond their alliances.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We got to, I guess the four know about everything with Drew, right?
And Austin, yeah.
And then Austin told Emily about the amulet, right?
Yes. So she knows. She probably tells Caleb.
Right. So the amulets are a very well known thing, right? And they know who went on that journey, so they know that Kelly has the other one, right? See, I said it. I said I'm a huge Kelly fan. I think she could
Yeah,
win.
yeah, I
If
agree.
she does not win this game, it is because she has the amulet, and there's no like that I said it when she decided to take the amulet. I said if she loses this game, it's because she has the amulet. Again, unless she orchestrates a vote out against Austin, which mathematically I'm not sure will eventually be possible. But yeah, if she loses this game, it will be because of the amulet. But yeah,
Who did you say knows that Kelly might have the amulet? Who did you say?
well, I would assume that everybody who knows about the amulet in general would know that Kelly has it because they know who went on the journey. Do you know what I'm saying? So like,
Okay. So you're saying that
Emily.
yeah.
So if Emily knows about Austin's amulet, she also knows about Kelly's amulet, right?
Yeah. So then, do you think that because Austin knows about it and Emily knows about it, does Kendra, Bruce, does Old Bello, do they know about Kelly's amulets? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I don't think Kendra knows. I don't think Katura knows. I don't think Bruce knows. I don't know if Jake knows. There's no reason for me to believe that like any of them would know, honestly. And again, I don't know. It's funny because like you said, theoretically, I'm thinking about the way that this is being, we're being shown, this is being edited, how much we've seen of each character. And like theoretically in my mind, like you said, like it's the smart move for I think Caleb and Emily to go with Bello and pick off the Reba based on what we've seen and based on the power that they hold. That being said, based on what we've seen, I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like a lot of these Bello players, I cannot. Obviously, we mentioned Sifu that or we haven't mentioned Sifu, but we mentioned last week that I don't know. He'll be voted out eventually, but it'll probably be soon. But in terms of he's the only one really with red that I could see like not being long for this game. But with blue, it's like I could see Bruce going out soon. I could see Katura going out soon. I could see Kendra going out soon. Jake, I'm not really sure what to think of Jake. He's the one that I'm really like on the fence of. Like maybe he goes far, maybe he doesn't go far. I'm not really sure. But like Bello, I could see losing more players based on like how much we've seen in the story. I could see them kind of going sooner than I could Reba members. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Listen, I'm not knocking on wood. I'm just hope Jake doesn't get medevac.
Yeah, I hope that'd be terrible. So,
especially for me. But no, I think you make a good point based on the edits, how far people are going to go. I think it's just so hard to read nowadays. I think we're both liking what we're seeing from Kelly. I've been hesitant to say like modern day Kim because it's obviously a very high bar, so I don't want to go there yet. But Kelly, I feel like is in that spot where everybody likes Kelly. People want to work with Kelly. Because again, I really think she should have been one of the names brought up tonight. And the fact that she wasn't brought up maybe speaks to her social game. The fact that everyone on blue feels good about her. Like everybody else on blue, you could make an argument and say their name has been brought up at some point. Bruce's name has been brought up. Kendra's name has been brought up. Katura, Caleb has been obviously brought up, but no one's been really throwing around Kelly except for Caleb. And in confessional, that's when Caleb last week was like, Kelly's the most connected person in this game. I could see Caleb maybe taking a shot at Kelly down the road, but I think he's going to want to go through Bruce first. He's not going to want to take out Kelly and just, give Bruce even more ammunition to go after him. So Kelly hopefully should be sitting pretty. We'll see what happens with the split vote. But no, I agree with you. I really like her.
Yeah. All right. Anything I'm trying to look like, obviously, like this is the main topic of conversation. So I don't think we need to necessarily go through like the whole episode this time, like just because so much like going forward and so much having to do with the vote. The immunity challenge was pretty crazy though. So I will mention that was fun. What is your thoughts? I know you mentioned, I'm pretty sure you mentioned before that you don't like it, but what's your thoughts on the whole earn the merge thing? Do you think that they're going to keep doing that, or do you think it's just time to just retire it?
I just think it's just. I mean, look, it's because like we keep saying, and again, we love the season. I think the season has been, in my opinion, 6 episodes in. We'll see how the post-merge goes, but pre-merge up until now, I think this has been my favorite New Era season so far. Maybe it's the 90 minutes, maybe it's the cast, maybe it's this last episode. This has been my favorite one so far through 6 episodes. I still feel like this earn the merge is stupid. Because in this new era, they have to earn everything. And I just feel like they're all on one beach. Let's just merge. I don't see why they have to earn it again. And I also just feel like the main reason why I don't like it is because I want to see options. I want to see.
Yeah, it limits the targets.
It limits the target pool, and it ends up being only like one or person A or B. And also, like, we're living in a world, Dylan, where Caleb plays shot in the dark and it hits. Imagine our universe now where it doesn't hit. Caleb goes out 11-0. We come on the podcast. This was a boring vote. It was predictable. 11-0. We lost a great player in Caleb. If he was on the winning side, he would have been maybe safe.
If it was a normal merge, maybe he'd be safe. Yeah, you never know.
Exactly. So you never know. So I mean, hindsight bias, hindsight's 2020. But like, I don't like the earn the merge. I feel like it's kind of played out at this point. They're going to keep doing it. But going back to the challenge, what did you think about the two puzzles? I feel like on one hand, I thought it was really cool to have a puzzle leading into a puzzle. But what I didn't like about it was that, Drew and someone else do the first part. And then on like the Rebus puzzle, like second part, they were just like telling them all the answers. Like, oh, it's this word. It's this word. It's like, they should have just been doing like one puzzle, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of having two puzzles though.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. So, okay. One other thing that I didn't mention is that, and this was, I think one of the things that is good about the earn the merge, and it does produce like good moments, is you have the merge feast, right? Where you have only half of them there, right? Mm-hmm. And they are the ones that are safe. So admittedly, like always they're going to throw out names, and it's always a mosh pit of all the tribes in one. So you're going to get like people throwing out names, people being like afraid to throw out names, and it usually produces good moments. So at this merge feast, just to like break down what happened here. So Seafood throws out Jay's name, and then you get like Austin, Drew, Julie, basically are saying they agree. Kendra and Bruce were like really hard throwing out Caleb's name. And then you get like that confessional, like with Katara, that was like, I think we should just vote Jay. Like, I don't understand why Jay would not be the vote. Like, we need to weaken Reba. And like, I think Katara really wants to work with Caleb based on like what we've seen in the past. So like, that could be another like lifeline for Caleb moving forward. Is that he does have Katara. Maybe that draws him. Maybe that draws him and Emily into working with Bella. You never know.
Listen, I'm happy for Katara that she finally got a confessional that wasn't about Bruce. Maybe that's showing. Maybe this is their
growth.
arc,
yes,
kind of their growth. Yeah, growth, kind of evolving. Because no, I think she's right though. It's like if Caleb is with you, and I don't think Bruce is aware how much. Like once Bruce started throwing out Caleb's name, I don't think Bruce is aware that Caleb did the same to him with his idol. I think that's a number for you. I agree with Katara. Why are Kendra and Bruce saying, Caleb should be the vote? I understand that, like, yes, Bruce knows Tika went far. Like we mentioned earlier, it's going to be dangerous if you leave them in the game. You can't let them get too far. But it's like, I think for this first earn the merge vote, before you get to the official 12, if Austin and Drew and Julie are so eager to just get rid of Jay, just let them take out one of their own. You then have even numbers, swing Caleb and Emily to your side, take out one more of Reba, and then go for Caleb. I feel like it's a little premature to start devouring one of your own, but maybe that's what happens when you have these two big tribes that haven't voted out a lot of people. Like Dylan, they were dying to get rid of Sifu, and Sean was like, "No, I'm going to step out." So they were dying to take out Sifu as well. These big tribes that don't lose people, and again, this happened with Tandang. When you have a tribe that never goes to tribal council, they are so eager to take out one of their own. So I agree with Katara. I think it was a little premature from Kendra and Bruce, but we'll see.
Yeah. Anything else you want to discuss?
Yeah, Dylan, this blew my mind. What can you explain to me? And maybe I need to go back and rewatch it. Bruce finds the idol on Lulu like 10 minutes before they go to merge, and it's a regular idol. Yes, he had to go dig it up under the shelter because it was a beware, but to my knowledge, there's no strings attached. It's not the sacrifice idol that Austin had. It's not the sacrifice one that Katara had. No. My question to you is, do you think this is either A, because the tribes never found the blue idol is dead. They never found it. Do you think this is just the blue idol re-hidden so they can find it? Or do you think that this is Sabaya's idol that got re-hidden and because she already sacrificed, it's now a regular idol. Can you explain why there's no?
I think the strings attached was that it was hidden under the shelter. That's their version of strings attached in this case, I think, right? Is because he found a note like in a tree, opened it, and they were like, in order to get the idol, you have to dig it up under your shelter. And again, this so happened to be on a very kumbaya tribe that was kind of all working together except for Katura, to the point where they were like, all right, I'll look for it. And he told everybody there that he had it except for Katura, right? So it was very easy for him to just dig up the idol. But there is a scenario where Sifu finds this let's just say there is a scenario in another tribe, if this was the case of another tribe, that let's say Sifu finds it and then has to get everybody else out and then sneak in and dig it up, and it makes for better TV. But I think that because I think that was a strings attached, and it is a good strings attached. It's a good twist. We've seen it in the past. I like having to go under the shelter in order to get the idol. It's just that with the tribe that this happened on, it didn't produce great TV because everybody was in on it, and they were just like, all right, Bruce, like everyone except like, let's get Katura out of camp, and then just like, let's just help you do it. And then you have the moment where like Jake is like acting like he's digging for like a ring, and I
lost my ring, bro.
Yeah. So I think that because I think it is good strings attached. I would say that because it didn't seem like it because they were all working together on it. Whereas the point of this is to kind of hit a tribe where they're at odds and you have to like sneak and do it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure the producers were like, damn, we want another Wentworth moment. Someone's by themselves having to go under the shelter and they all happen to go to get it together. I'm sure they really wanted that moment back. I see what you're saying. I will say my only counterpoint is I feel like this to me, these strings attached to me is doing something publicly. And looking under the shelter to me is the same thing as burning the idol, like in the wax. That's also kind of public. And then the other one was holding up the clue to the flag. That's also very public as well. So they all had a public component. Yeah. But then after the public component was you need to sacrifice your vote. So the only reason that I can think of why Bruce doesn't have to sacrifice a vote, unless they didn't show it to us, is this is Sabaya's idol that got rehidden. And because she already did the sacrifice part, that's already been completed, and now it's a regular idol. That's the only thing I can think of.
I get what you mean now. So no strings attached, because I guess also like those idols were found earlier in the game, right? So it was like you could like I had the strings attached. That was like, all right, if you sacrifice it now, and then if you sacrifice it then, and then it moves to full idol. But like because this is being found right before the merge, that like maybe that was not possible to like add that in. I mean, I guess they could have still had him sacrifice it for 2 votes in order to turn into a real idol, but like, I don't know. That is interesting. I didn't get that you meant like in terms of like the sacrificing the vote part. That is interesting now. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. That actually is very interesting. I guess it is a different time of the game. Like those idols were found at the very beginning, and this was found like right as the merge was happening. So maybe again, my guess is just like they rehid Sabaya's, if I had to guess. Yeah. And maybe there were no strings attached because it was close to the merge. Now I'm curious, was there like another one hidden on the other beaches or no?
So no, so that's what I'm saying. I feel like because we didn't get any other people looking right before the merge, and they are still looking for the idol on yellow, Caleb already told them all, well, he at least told Kelly to build trust. Sabaya went home with it in her pocket. So that would mean it's rehidden. So I think that's maybe why. The only other thing that I was thinking of was like, they never found the blue one at all. So maybe production was like, shit, we got to get that back in the game. Just throw it on yellow. I don't know, but either way, Bruce doesn't have to sacrifice. Bruce has an idol along with Austin.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I still think Bruce for sure going home with that idol in his pocket.
By the way,
see that happening.
By the way, next week, and I'm sure you might feel the same way, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Drew use safety without power next week, because let's just say he ends up in a bad split with this twist. Very easily for him, he can just get up and leave. And other than that, other than like a Jeremy situation where everyone's voting for him, I don't see a situation else where Drew uses safety without power. You could also make the argument. Let's just say he's in a good spot with D, Julie on one side, and Austin's kind of by himself, and he doesn't want Austin to use the idol yet. Maybe he kind of passes him to safety with that power and says, hey, here's your eject button. If you feel like you're in danger in the split, just use it. Save yourself. We'll keep your idol for when we're all voting together at 10 or whatever it is. I could see safety with that power being a great thing to use in a split group when you don't know how you're going to be randomly split up. And I could see Drew passing it to his alliance saying, hey, we need to use this so we can all make it through that vote.
Yeah, I could see him using it for either himself or for somebody else here, for sure. And interesting that we get the split vote here is coming at 12 and not 10. I think in the past few seasons, the past 4 seasons, it's been at 10, and this time it's at 12. So it is a little bit of a twist, is that you could, theoretically, like if you're split up into 5 and 5, it's like, all right, it's an odd number of votes. If you're split up into 6 and 6, theoretically you could be at you could be at a 3-3 split, right? So it could produce better things,
No, I think it's better. Everyone in the community is saying it's better because the biggest thing, and obviously I'm glad that Do or Die is gone. It's been gone for a couple seasons now, but like the biggest thing that people have had a complaint with about the post-merge in the new era, because also the journeys kind of like start to go away as well. The biggest problem with the post-merge in the new era is that when you have the split tribal at 10, you lose that final 9 votes. And final 9 votes, as we see in Survivor history, like you referenced the Sophie vote in Winners at War. Final 9 is actually that was 10. I digress. Final 9 is a very big vote because you can have a 5-4 split, 6-3. It's a very big vote in post-merge Survivor. So when you have a final 10 split tribal and you go from 10 to 8, you lose that critical 9 vote. So I'm very happy we're getting it at 12 and 11. And now hopefully the rest of the merge is just 10, 9, 8, 7. It's going to be more normal because I feel like in a season like this, I really want to see how final 9 plays out normally.
I like that. That's a great call. I like that a lot. Those, I vote 9 is with 9 people left. It's big. Now it's like you have it at 11 and 12, which like, okay, like some seasons they don't even merge it. Like they just first merging at like, 11 or whatever. So yeah. I think that's a good call.
Mm-hmm. I have one more thing to mention about this episode, unless you have anything else. We finally got Emily and Bruce on the same beach.
Yes.
And this, I kind of wanted it to be a bit more like fireworks, but I was more happy that they were both like, no, let's bury the hatchet. We're good. And then in confessional, they're like, yeah, we'll see how this goes, but I could easily just target them, soon. So I'm happy that we still get Emily and Bruce together, and hopefully they'll start, swinging at each other.
Yeah, it's so interesting because last season, it was like Franny was like, we have to get out of the Tika 3. We had to take a Tika 3. Didn't happen. They go all the way to the end. Now it's like you have Bruce, who is like, I want to get out Caleb, and like I like Emily called me out on day 1. She has to go. Now it's like you have Bruce, who is targeting the swing votes, right? Whereas Franny goes home last season before she's able to target the swing votes, and then the swing votes all go to the end. Curious to see what the trajectory of this of this is, where Bruce is targeting the swing votes. Will he be successful in getting any of them out, or is Bruce going to go home and then the swing votes are going to go way further in the game? We'll have to see.
Yeah. And listen, and we both like Bruce, but I think Bruce basically next week, he's got to play as idol, because I think if he ends up on a group with either Caleb, Emily, and honestly, even Kelly or Jake might want to swing at him. So I think Bruce is, like we said, is in a lot of danger next week. He's got to play as idol, or just hope somehow he ends up with Caleb and people want to still go after Caleb, because I'm doing the numbers and I'm like, I think anyone in the game is maybe going to want to take a swing at Bruce now. So yeah,
he's in major trouble. But I think that's all I got for today. I think we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you got any questions, you can always comment on this video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, really helps us out. Still working on getting the Twitter account back, which who knows if it'll ever come back, but we will keep trying. And yeah, that's all we got. Excited for next week.
Dylan, I'm very hyped for next week. I said it earlier. I think 6 episodes in, new era has finally hit its stride.
Yep, I agree.
Grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.